Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for attending this evening. Despite the despicable weather outside, it's a real fantastic pleasure to have you here and not drowning in water somewhere else. It's a fantastic film, and we're really happy to be able to show it this evening here in Leeds. Even more exciting, we have one of the co-directors of the film, Paul, here to join us for a Q&A after the film. He's going to do a brief little intro just to kind of tickle your taste buds.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you for inviting us here, and thank you for coming. The film was shot over a period of about 2 to 3 months on a tour of places that bands don't always go to. It was made possible by the people that crowdfunded it. I'm sure there's a few of you here, so I'd like to thank all of you for that. And other than that, just enjoy the film. Thank you.
Broken Britain's an understatement. You know, it's absolutely smashed to pieces.
The smell of piss is so strong it smells like decent bacon.
He was just so fucking glamorous and rock and roll. He just turned up and just belted out all these songs.
Well, you couldn't argue that going to a Sleaford Mods gig is a passive experience.
They say the truth, and a lot of people don't like the truth. They're the only band that's really saying it, and probably the only band that's been saying it for a long time.
People that have just lost all faith in Westminster or the House of Commons or whatever, they've just been completely alienated, but that's the idea, isn't it?
It's the first band that have said something relevant musically and entwined politics without it seeming preachy since the Specials.
Tied up in knots with a ZU cont, black t-shirts and steak toss.
Can we start off by saying, it's a fantastic film, and it's your first film as a director. It's really hard to make a film.
Tell me about it.
Loads of work. It's expensive, it's timely. Why did you feel compelled to do it?
I met them in October, the same day that I met Nathan, who co-directed the film, and when Andrew mentioned they were going to be doing this tour of places, and it just seemed like a good idea. And it started off as a documentary about the band, and it gradually shifted to be about the communities that they visited on those tours, on the tour, and it kind of shifted that way. And I think we just wanted to document something really. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was the sort of thing that as you go along, you learn it really. I just thought it was important to do something about the band and say something about what was going on really. We didn't have any sort of ideas other than that, I guess.
And how did you come to meet the people involved? Because it's really refreshing to not have lots of people from the music industry in there just kind of talking. Instead, it's lots of interviews with the fans, which is what makes it really fantastic. Did you just meet them?
Yeah, when we announced the crowdfunding campaign, we had about 6 weeks to get the money together, and we actually said in it, if you're going to be at one of the shows, get in touch, email us, and we'll meet you before the gig and do an interview. Because that was pretty much what we did. We'd arrive in a town or a city, and we'd have to sort of do some location stuff, and then we'd have to meet people and then shoot the gig, and then repeat the thing the next day. So people were just really generous with their time and with their money as well, and they all got in touch with us really. Certainly a lot of the places we've been to I wouldn't have got to go to otherwise, so it was great for them. And obviously there's some of the big cities like Liverpool and Cardiff and Oxford that were there as well, but most of them were sort of off the beaten track a bit compared to what most bands do that get to the level that Sleaford Mods are. They won't go to those places because there's no money in it. It's more profitable to pay like big venues, but they decided they wanted to do a tour that would do things in that old-fashioned way, and really credit to them for that really.
And what's the reception been like at the screenings that you've been doing? Because I'm assuming that they've obviously been really popular based on everything I've seen online. What has the feeling been from people watching the film?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I think it's important for a music documentary, if it's about a band, to give people that are actually into the band a chance to speak about the band. Because as you say, a lot of them, you see them, they've got the old talking heads thing, and you'll see someone pop up to talk about bands. It's usually like all the old kind of people from that era of the 90s. A lot of the time you see like Noel Gallagher popping up to stick his tuppence in, and it's not interesting really. I think it's more interesting to see regular people and what they think about stuff. But the reception's been good.
Does anyone from the audience have any questions they would like to ask?
Yeah, the Spots tour, Sex Pistols on tour. Yeah, only because I've watched the film from the Fury. I was born in '76, so I was a bit young to be there for it all, but watching Julian Temple, that great documentary, and the gig in Caerphilly where there's that sort of very high-minded geezer outside, and then Steve Jones just basically nails it and says, yeah, well, he's outside, it's fucking freezing, we're in here, we're all right. So I was very aware of that documentary. That was a big influence on the film from the Fury. Probably that and a series of documentaries, the Robinson trilogy by Patrick Keeler, certainly influenced a lot of what you see on the screen in terms of the static camera. And in terms of things like putting things in the frame, like there's a bit where Lisa's talking about class inequality, and you see the Bank of England and a van goes by which says "good old boy," and she's talking about how capitalism works, and that was pure chance. I mean, we didn't hire someone to drive that van. It was just fortunate that, you know, we were filming and that came along. The bit of Nye Bevan in Cardiff where the birders, you know, the pigeons have shat all over his head, we didn't, you know, get a pigeon to do that. It was just right time, right place. So certainly Phil from the Fury and Patrick Keeler were the main influences for that. You know, we weren't watching things other than that influenced it, I'd say.
Was there anything else you would have loved to include in the film that you just felt like you couldn't, that just became impossible?
Well, the thing is, with all of those subjects covered, you can't really do them justice in 7-10 minute sections. You know, we kind of, that was my one regret, that we couldn't have, because each of those things could be a documentary in themselves. At one point there was going to be a section on, not on UKIP so much, but just on the rise of, well, I don't know whether it's too strong to call it fascism really, but you know, things like EDL and Britain First. And we did have a whole section planned, but we had to drop it because that's 85 minutes, and it would have taken the film into being, 95 minutes, and that's too long really for a documentary.
So the issues are obviously, while you're passionate about the music, the issues are very much close to your heart as well.
Yeah.
Is that part of why you yourself are quite passionate about the Sleaford mods?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first heard them, the first lyric that I heard was, I discovered them relatively late. You know, it was before Divide and Exit came out, but it was, the smell of piss is so strong it smells like decent bacon. And I heard hearing a lyric like that, you know, you can't fail to be sort of intrigued by it. And then I got more into their, when Divide and Exit came out, and then went back to Austerity Dogs and the other stuff. But it is, it's the lyrics and the music as well. But I think if the lyrics weren't as good, then it wouldn't be something that we're all into. And if the music wasn't as good, it would just be, it's just the perfect combination, I think.
No one else from the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all did, didn't we? We all thought that Miliband would win, and the interview where Jason says, general elections not going to change out, that was in Tunbridge Wells, which was in, I think, sort of early April, and he was making the point. In the whole through the film, you see the point is that the parties are the same, which is not necessarily the case now, but. Our producer Andrew, once this Corbyn thing started to happen when he was around about, when was the election? The leadership election was that September, something like that. And we were just at final edit, and he said, "You're going to try and put something about Corbyn in," and we didn't really think it was appropriate because we're not pro any party with that documentary. It's, if anything, it's saying that the way you change things is in your community, on a local level. But yeah, we thought that Labour would win, and I think for us, the fact that the Tories won made it, the documentary that it is. And would I rather that Labour had won? Then yeah, of course I would. I mean, it would have made the documentary perhaps less powerful, but I didn't want the Tories to win, and I think that things would have been better under Labour. They might not have been as great as we'd all want a Labour Party to be, but they certainly would have been better.
And I think we do see here at the Picture House an increasing number of films that are being made by people who are just really passionate, with funding from fans, self-distributed, getting out and about. It seems like it is more doable these days to bypass mainstream media. I mean, does it feel that way? I mean, how many connections have you been able to make through social media, through
loads.
non-traditional? Yeah,
I mean, as you say, the crowdfunding thing makes film with more democratic process. It's still obviously expensive. But getting it out there, I mean, this film was, got to the level it was because of the band. It wasn't, no one would have, wanted to watch some film that, two first-time filmmakers was making. It's because of the band that it got to the level it did, and we're lucky that we made a good film and they got behind us, So I think if you've got a good idea, I mean, whether it's working with something that people are already interested in, then yeah, you've got a chance. And there are cinemas like this is a great place, and there are lots of other cinemas we've been to that are independent, that wanted to help out and get behind the spirit of it, because people like View and Odeon are not interested. They just want to sell nachos, don't they? And good luck to them.
And going forwards, like your next projects, I'm assuming you're going to make more films, hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah. The next one I think is going to be a documentary about veteran homelessness. There's a statistic that I read about, is something like 1 in 9 people that are homeless in this country are ex-military. It's higher in cities. In London, I think it's 1 in 5. And so the idea with that is to make a documentary looking at the causes and the reasons for that, why there's this lack of care after service, and not to sort of, you know, try and say war is wrong or anything like that, you know, keep those views out of it, but just to look at the people involved and, you know, work with either sort of people that are veterans or are you know, homeless or something like that. So it's in the planning stages at the moment. Thanks for coming.
Austerity's work for the rich, you know. It's not work for the rest of us.
I just started writing about the exterior and about social issues and became more intelligent with it and wasn't sort of drowning in your own misery and just sounding like a prat. Oof.